What's going on, everybody? Thanks once again for coming to the Rick podcast. This is Eric, and today we don't have Shane with us. Shane, don't get mad at us, man. Like you had that interview with Paul the other day. You said, hopefully, I'm not cheating on Eric. You weren't. I don't think I'm cheating on you today either, man. But we have a name that's going to sound very familiar to you guys, but it's not the actual actor. We've got Tom Crewse with us. How you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm good. How about
Good.
yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really, really good. First of all, I want to say thank you for coming on here. I think there's a lot of insights and perspective that you can give a lot of the listeners for sure, man. And a little history, guys, of Tom and I. We actually used to work over in Long Beach together. He was one of my battalion chiefs when I was actually on Truck 17, and it was enjoyable to work underneath you, man. It really was. At that time, I was working
Hey.
with I think it was Matt Block at the time. I think he was my captain at the time when I was on Truck 17. But you would always come around and, what do you guys need? How's it going? Always say hi. And I always appreciate that, man. I really, really did, especially when it's coming from command staff. You never kind of sometimes know what you're going to get, right?
No, you're welcome. Part of that was for me. I think I got as much or more out of that than you guys did. So
Awesome. Well, thanks once again, buddy, for coming on here. And
you're welcome.
we'll get right into it. And like Shane and I always talk about, the conversation will ebb and flow and see where it goes, and we'll go from there. But yeah, just kind of tell us a little bit about who you are, where you live, what you do, what you're doing right now, your history. And I know you have a pretty long story of different things that have happened, and go as in depth or shallow as you want. It's up to you. So yeah, just let us know a little bit about yourself.
Oh, you're looking for something broad. Normally, an introduction would say, what was your experience at work, and what is it like here at First Responder Wellness? And so now you looking like you want this broad. Well, one, thanks, and thanks for having me on. So a little bit about myself. I was born in Torrance, California. Kind of at a small age, moved out to the San Fernando Valley, and let's see. My dad was a firefighter, Beverly Hills. He
Oh,
retired. Gosh, he retired. He's since passed away, but I want to say about 30 years ago. So that certainly goes by fast. So yeah, so he was a firefighter. It's pretty cool. I think growing up, I was looking at his friends and him thinking, all right, I want to be that. I want to
see,
be
I,
that, you know?
I had no
Go
idea,
ahead.
man. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. And growing up, really, I was pretty standard, standard stuff, really, sports and whatnot. And I think even through high school, pretty standard. And then like every other fireman, firefighter, a bunch of washed up high school football players, right? So that's about all I was. I got hired at 19 by the state of Carlsbad, and that honestly is all about. It's just about all I was bringing to the table. It's pretty interesting how I got hired anyway, but somehow it worked out. And so let's see here. I worked there for a few years, got married, a couple of kids who are doing amazingly well, and then after actually it was about 5 years into it, I thought, I had started so young, right? All you wanted to do is go on runs. That's it,
Yes.
and all you want to do is go on a bunch of runs. So I was looking around to a few departments, and then whoever hired me first was where I was going to go. So basically, I traded a 5 minute drive for an hour and 10 minute drive. So it tells you how smart I am. But yeah, I went to Long Beach, and so I started Carlsbad in 82, Long Beach in 89, and then I retired. I was medically retired at. Oh, so okay. So in the meantime, let's see here. I'll backtrack a little bit. I went through divorce, and then I went through, there's a period of time where you're not committed. Then I found my wife, and man, that's been amazing ever since. To be honest with you, probably best relationship I have. We're more like best friends than anything. So really, really fortunate there. Kids are still doing well. We had Charlotte, who is now going off to college, which we're excited about. So that's the family end. And then my stepson is a Long Beach firefighter, Christian.
How
He
long
works
has he
for
been
Long
there?
Beach now. Let's see here. He's been there about, I'm going to say a little over 4 years.
Got it. And does he play
Talk,
hockey? He plays hockey, right?
he does. Yeah. He's the
That's
hockey
right.
guy. He's the hockey
Yeah.
model guy. He's the,
Nice. That's right.
he, and he hasn't even jacked up his face with a puck. So that's kind of interesting. That always cracks me up. But so he's
Awesome.
there. He loves it. Yeah. Thanks. Let's see here. And then, what did I do? So in
The,
Long Beach, I was a paramedic, a firefighter paramedic for a while. Man, I love that. I was on a 7A crew, which I don't know if it's notorious or not, but we had a lot of, it was a great crew. Really busy at that time. That was through the riots and through that whole time. So
yeah.
definitely, really, really good. Great time. Great group of guys. I'm really good friends with several of the guys that were on that crew then. So,
Yeah.
and we all know how important those relationships are. So that matters quite a bit. So that was really good. Promoted to captain in '97, BC 2010. Yeah, and then retired 2018.
Yeah.
Which I keep saying I've been retired for a couple of years or a few years maybe, but shoot, it's been over 5 now, right? So that's pretty crazy.
How
Yeah,
you liking it?
uh, right now, oh, it's
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. Yeah, initially a little tricky.
Yeah. We'll talk
We'll
about that
get into
stuff
that
too for
probably,
sure.
yeah. But
Yeah.
retirement's great. I
Good.
highly recommend it. Yeah,
Nice.
I do. I've I've got no complaints, Eric. Let me tell you.
That's good, man. That's really good. Sevens, you talk about sevens, and
Yeah,
that sevens has a place in my heart too. I was there with a great crew at sevens as well. And did they have the bucket? That was still with the
yeah,
bucket, right?
yeah.
When you were
That's
there,
the only
right?
station that has that. Yeah, everybody else has gone to Tillard Aerials,
Yeah.
which is good,
Yes.
I think. But
Yeah. Sevens was a real fun station, man. I had a great crew as well. Like I have zero um nothing negative to say about there. It was a blast and got some good fires. And I got to, hopefully we'll have him on the podcast here soon, Brogan Healy. He actually used to work at FDNY for our listeners, but he was one of my senior firemen, and we had some good fires together, and he taught me so much there. He taught me so much of
You did
just,
well with Brogan. That
yeah,
guy's a great story. What an amazing man. I
yeah,
love talking to that guy too. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Well, thanks, man. I know it's kind of broad, but it was just to break the ice a little bit and let the
Sure.
listeners get to know you a little bit. And you talked about some things there as far as a divorce, and we know the
Yeah.
job can bring on, man, dude, how many guys get disconnected with so much stuff of just emotions and feeling, and feeling lost and really not sure how to shut off work, right? Come home and take the boots off, leave them at the door, as we say. Sometimes I don't know how it was with you, Cruiser, but I used to treat my house like a fire station for a very long time. When Sable was here, she would always like, stop treating me like a rookie. I'm like, I'm not treating you like a rookie. What are you talking about? Like the counters have to be this way, and if the trash isn't
Yeah.
taken out, if the dishes aren't put away, just I never know what I'm gonna get. When you walk through that door, and I didn't understand. And
Yeah.
I was like, but I'm taking care of us. I'm doing the right thing, and I just didn't have the right perspective on that. But to know that you came through the other side and you're in a happy relationship, and that's what life's about, for sure, for sure, for sure. Um,
I couldn't agree more, by the way, for what that's
yeah.
worth.
Did you battle those things as well? Because I know we have a lot of listeners that will say, and they connect with some of that stuff, as far as leaving the boots at the door and stuff like that. What are some issues when you're on the job? Um, Challenges maybe within the family. If you can give anybody
Mhm.
any words of advice, some wisdom of working in a busy fire department, leaving those boots at the door. What have you learned from being on the job now into retirement? But mainly on the job, what do you think can be some good wisdom for being able to separate the two?
That's a good question. I do know a couple of things that, one, being able to separate the job from your, home life is important, and yet it's tough to do.
Yeah.
right? I mean, let's be honest, you hit it on the head too, and that's that we really, man, well, I just speak for myself, but I loved it, right? I was all about it. I left, after 7 years someplace because I wanted to be busy, went to Long Beach and Grant, let's face it, man, most of them are EMS runs, but you got to be in those busy areas.
What are you talking
I'd
about?
lo- I'd love to say they're all fires, but you gotta be in those busy areas, gotta get your butt kicked in a little bit to get the fires when they come. So, but I loved it. Involved in training and all the other stuff, taught a bunch of drill schools. And so you're all about it. You are all about it. And when I came home, it seemed like everything else was all about it too, right? So it just becomes completely immersed. Half the holidays because you're working, and then I'd work overtime. They're all at the fire station too, right? We'd have these big get-togethers, and so a lot of it's really good, right? Your family would come for Christmas, big Christmas dinners, pick up runs. The kids would all jump on the rig and take them on runs, and so that all that was a lot of fun. Uh, However, some of the stuff that I brought home, I think, in terms of structure, like you said, Sable said when she was there that, hey, don't treat me like a rookie, right? So, and even if that's not the case, let's face it, we're used to structure. I talked
Hmm.
about this the other day in a class. In fact, it was yesterday. I said, it's interesting because we're used to structure, right? And then if it's not there, if you don't put the irons a certain way, and for those who don't know, they're just a set of tools that get you in a door, but you're going to hear about it the next day, right? If they weren't there, if they're in a different compartment. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. It's not how we roll, right? It's just there's structure to it. There's a way to do it. It's black and white. And then yet you go home and, hey man, life's messy. It doesn't work that way. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Try going home and saying, hey, it's Monday. We're going to do this. We're going to clean this. On Tuesday, we're cleaning this. Or coming home and going, God damn it, why wasn't that done?
Yep.
I mean, it just doesn't work, right? So what we had in the fire station, you come home, it doesn't fly. And the other part of it, I think, well, another part of it is that we really have a tendency to not even be present.
That's huge. That is huge.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that for the longest time,
Yeah.
because you're really always thinking about it. Let's face it. So you're thinking about it because when I went there, I loved it. It was a great fit. I love the place. And so I was all about it. Therefore, all of my friends are all firemen, right? I'm a godfather to my buddy's kid, vice versa. All the parties I went to are all surrounded by firefighters. So you become completely fire centric and you're way out of balance. And then everything is. And I'm not saying that's bad because I loved every minute of that stuff.
Hmm.
I'm saying because I don't want that to be misunderstood because there is a lot of good in it, right? A lot of great relationships. But what I am saying is that over a long period of time, especially, how about this? Especially as you get closer to retirement, that lack of balance can have some negative consequences because all you've ever known is the fire department. I think what's really important is that I probably should have allowed myself or allowed for the fire department to become what I did, not who I was.
Totally.
Right.
Yep.
And for a
Hmm.
lot of us, we absolutely let it become who we are, not what we do. And so
Hmm.
like I said, I am completely guilty of that.
Yeah.
A lot of good
Well,
came of it, but then probably some things weren't so good.
and I think it's, a lot of the people that listen to this podcast, are all over the nation, but we have some firemen, we have some doctors, we've got some family members, wives, children that listen to this podcast, and sometimes, there's a lot of things they may not understand when daddy comes home or when mommy comes home. Are they listening to me? They're not looking at me. And what you said, it is such a theme, Tom, of not being present, and you don't realize it when you're going through it, right? And you come home and uh, maybe you're not even enjoying the dinner or just a conversation, uh, and you're just not present because our body. We'll get into more about this as well because you do a lot of work over in Newport Beach at the Health and Wellness Center. But we are super hyper vigilant. We need to be, right? If you agree on the job, we have to be ready. And like you got on super young, right? You got 19. I got on a couple years later at about 21 full time. But prior to that, I was a fire explorer. You're used to running calls. So at a teenage age, um, you're already prepping and preparing your brain to stay on constant alert. And when you have years and years and years of just always being on alert, your body, uh, viscerally only knows that response. And it's we're not taught this in academies. We're not really taught this side of how to notice those signs of not being present, right, in the family or uh, whatever it may be in relationships. And that can have very damaging effects. And we may not know it at the time until years later. And you look back and you're like, wow, that's why that may have happened, because all the signs were right in front of me. All the stop signs or the yield signs were right there, but we possibly just missed them because we weren't present. We didn't slow down enough to actually pay attention to what was right in front of us. Because you brought up another good point. Nothing bad, all great stuff. But you talked about, being a fireman is uh, you know, it does become who we are because it's a part of our life. We don't have and this is no offense to anyone else, but it's a different job. We put our life on the line, a lot of the times for maybe a little bit of the times, but for different calls and whatnot. But we have to have a different mindset for these calls we run, on a daily basis. And it does become who we are because we have to kind of have two different personalities. And to be able, I don't want to say two different personalities, but two different lives, I guess you should say. We could say, because you're a firefighter life and then you have your home life. And at the job, we're around people that get us. Would you agree?
Right. 100%.
I could talk to someone like you and you'll understand it right away. I can go have the same conversation with a non-fireman and they'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about, man. Like, our lingo is the same. Our brains are a lot more fast typically because we are a little more hyper vigilant. We might communicate a little bit differently, and our expectation of each other is a little different. And so if we come home and that expectation ain't the same, then we lose a disconnect. We're not present and we just kind of check out. That's kind of how I feel. I don't know if you feel the same or you can piggyback on that, but there's a lot of stuff you said right there that can have a lot of conversation for sure.
Well, you nailed it, really. It's like, well, you started off with, well, why does dad act this way?
Yeah.
Right? Well, why is
Yeah.
he like that? Why is he distant, kind of disconnected, maybe a little irritable, irritability, with a couple little things turns to anger, right? So, why is dad like that? And why is it a different dad? Like right when he gets off that day versus at the end of a 6 day, right?
Yeah.
Why are they different? And I think it is important for them to know because we really are. But if you think about it, you're going on these runs, right? You're super hyper vigilant, and you said it because you have to be. That hyper vigilance, right? Knowing what's going on all around you, only 100% of the time, that keeps you safe, and it keeps those people around you safe. And you have to be all in because, again, it keeps you and your people safe, right? You can't be half-assed at work. It doesn't work out that well. It just doesn't. But that said, when we do all that for whatever, 24, 48, 72, 96 hours in a row, on top of that, take some busy place that's running. And it doesn't have to be really busy, but you could look at a busy place running, a lot of runs, right? I don't know, 15, 20 runs a day. You're not getting much sleep either. And even if you're at a slower place and you're running a lot fewer runs, you're still not sleeping well anyway. And so you come home, there's sleep issues anyway. And the hypervigilance because you just had that shitty call, right? You just had 4 people trapped in a car, you had 3 people get shot, whatever your run is, or a fire that didn't go so well. So you come home, you're thinking about that. You've had all of that adrenaline dump, all the chemical dump, right? Chemical jumps when you're on duty. You come home, and that stuff doesn't go away automatically. It really doesn't. It takes about 24 hours, studies show, for you to actually come back to equilibrium. because you're down
Mm-hmm.
for a while. And so you come home, you're tired, you're disconnected. You start to slowly come around, but literally from a biology, right, from a perspective, you're looking at really about 24 hours before you're kind of back. So if you think about it, we're working all these days. We come back, we're off one day, we work some more, we come back. I mean, dad's not normal. Dad's not. That's one of the best things in retirement, by the way, is all of a sudden you get your sleep back. I'm not gonna lie, it's great. You dump a lot of that stuff, and I deal with a bunch of bullshit. And the other part of it is, I get to sleep,
Yeah.
and you get good solid sleep, and that's important. So, yeah, looking at why dad feels that way, or mom, if she's firefighter, really doesn't matter, obviously, right? But why are they that way? And then maybe I can understand it when they come home, especially from the spouse too, who might be able to explain it to some younger kids, or at least, provide some deflection, or at least how to manage it. But maybe a lot of that stuff isn't taught. As a matter of fact, I'm sure it isn't. And maybe some of that understanding is good. And I wanted to kind of retrace a little bit on what I was talking about, the balance part, because you said something that was really good, Eric, and that's that when you're in the middle of it, this job, in the middle of your career, the job does become who you are. Right? There's no way I was getting around that. In fact, I embraced it, right? Because that's
Yeah.
who you are. So I think where I was going with that is at the end of your career, toward the end, if that's all you have, then that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you have nothing else or no outside hobbies, I don't do anything other than the fire department, and then the fire department's gone, then I'm kind of in, and that's a different issue we can talk about later if you want. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I
kind
think
of where I was going with that.
no, I got you. I feel you on that one, and I think that's going to be a great one too because, um, being younger, right? I didn't have a full career like I thought I was going to have.
Right.
Unfortunately, I got the medical retirement, and me, I do a lot of things outside of the fire department. I'm a musician. I play sports and I do charity stuff. I'm very involved in different things, but it really is a part of who we are. And even if you're busy, when you
Right.
have a big piece of your life taken out, you go through an identity crisis. I did. And I was
Yeah.
kind of like, wow, what is going on? What am I going to get up and do today? Yeah, I've got all these things, but our schedule is so, like right now, how we're towards the end of summer, but like fires are going off like crazy right now this year, right? And
Yeah.
so summertime, are we typically home? No. You're working overtime, you're going on strike teams,
Right.
you're out for 14, 21 days, you're making the money, you're having fun, you're covering shifts, you're, from fire to fire, you're not getting sleep, and you're just doing the job you love. And so when those little moments or those times in time get taken away throughout that year, your body is already trained to accept things at a certain time in that year. And when it's taken away, you're like, wait, I'm not going to do this for the next few months. Okay, well, I got to figure something else out to do, which is fine. So I'm not complaining or anything, but you have to retrain your mind and your brain and your body for new things. And you're going to have to rebuild yourself in a lot of different ways. And like what you said, it's with the early retirement, not for me, my early retirement, but for your retirement. You how many firemen do you think we can talk about this actually because you deal with this a lot with
Right.
the health and wellness center in Newport Beach. How many guys after retirement do you think percentages or just a roundabout idea that's all they have, and then when they're in retirement they don't even know what to do, right? Like something's taken away from them and they kind of lose purpose, identity, and they're just kind of stuck. Is that
Yeah.
an issue, or do you
Oh, it's
think you
a
see?
it's a thing.
Yeah.
We're even teaching that we have this called first responder, or well, that's the company's first responder wellness. That's who I work for. Well, and I'll just throw this in now. After retirement for me, I don't know if it was directed at me this way, Eric, but there
No,
seems to
I
be a
like
pretty
it.
good segue here. But
Yeah.
I needed help post retirement about 6 or 7, I don't know, yeah, 6 or 7 months after I retired. I was medically retired against my wishes, and I don't know, I fought it. Who does that after 36 years? So which is pretty interesting on its own. But
Wait,
that
wait.
didn't work, which
Let's.
was ultimate. Go ahead.
You got you got medically retired?
I did.
I
Yeah.
did not. I did not know that.
Yeah. No, I did.
Okay.
You know what? Yeah, I wasn't proud of it, oddly
Yeah.
enough. Yeah, it wasn't something I was shooting for, and yeah, I didn't. I tried to go back and fight it, but it didn't work. So in 2018, I had a heart attack, and that's what took it out. So, but it is what
Got
it
it.
is. In hindsight, it was certainly was the best thing. I had it. My Charlotte, my daughter, was in high school, and my idea was to go as long or go until she got out of high school. So it would have been that would have put me right at 40 years, which let's face it, man, we don't tomorrow's not promised to any of us, right? So, I think retiring early would have been better. But anyway, so I did that. And then, so anyway, so I retired. That's where I was. I get sidetracked, Eric.
Yeah, sorry.
So, so I medically retired, and then about 6, 7 months into it, man, I started needing some help. And I was going to go see a counselor, then I did, and I needed more, and things were just closing in. It got pretty sketchy, to be honest with you. I'm not going too
Yeah.
much into it. I'd had a head injury back at work. Gosh, it was what 20, 18 years before that or something, and so that was catching up with me. So the head injury was, I mean, things were just getting worse, and I was fighting it. And of course, we're firemen, so I don't tell anybody. I've got to put on this mask. All right, I've got to, I'm just not going to tell anybody. And so, but it was getting worse, and it was getting harder to do what I needed to do and to think through everything. And so, and again, you just, I continue to just shove it in and hide it. Go ahead.
Can we?
Yeah.
Would you mind talking about the head injury a little bit, or kind of what
No, I don't.
happened?
Yeah, no, I don't
Is
mind.
that all right?
Yeah, it's fine. So we were at a fire, commercial fire in Signal Hill, and we were fire was it was going like a bomb. It was in back, and we're going through the offices like you normally do to save the offices and the records and that kind of stuff. So anyway, we were going through there, and I knelt down and put my mask on right underneath the line that goes into the property that goes into the weatherhead. And so that had burned through. I had thought that I had addressed that earlier because I had someone put a line on it, and I was captain at the time at a station 10. And anyway, in my head, that thing was taken care of. Well, I lost track. I didn't pay attention to it because I think it started to burn back again. And in any case, you never kneel down, right, to put your mask under a line. You just don't, right? Even if it was taken care of, you just don't do it. So I did, and it came down, and so it hit me in the face. So it's basically I took 480 volts to the head, which I don't
Oh,
recommend. Initial electroshock therapy, highly not recommended. So anyway, that happened. I was off for a while, and the hospital, that kind of stuff. And then, but I came back, and in the meantime, this is kind of interesting. Nobody really knows this, but in the meantime, I came back. Man, I came back way too early. I walked in the kitchen at one day, and it's for guys who don't know, it's a pretty busy place. And walked in, and I got quiet when I walked in, and I said, "Hey," and I said, "They're at the doorway." I'll never forget this. And I said, "I came back too early, didn't I?" And they all went, "Yep." So basically, that was your crew looking after you. I remember my engineer. I won't say his name. He was my old paramedic partner, and he's great. And I think when I came back, I don't know if I should be sharing all this, Eric, but when I came back, I didn't know where half the damn streets were, but there is no, right? Talk about the fire department and how dumb all that stuff is. I was not gonna stay off. I'm coming back. I got to be with my guys, all that stuff. So
but that stuff is
anyway,
important though,
so
because
yeah,
that's what. Yeah,
right? No, yeah, go ahead.
that's what we do, right?
Yeah,
Most firemen want to be back on the job. We
correct.
we don't. Okay, you know what? I'm going to take all the time I need to just be away from work. It's something we love to do, right? Like you said. And so you had this injury, and your goal wasn't to stay off of work. Where most people, I think, in
No,
other jobs, uh, I feel like, don't really love what they do, right? So they get some time off of work. They're gonna suck every time, every second, every day, whatever it is to be off until they have to go back. But the fire department, the fire service, were different. you're like, you know what? Hey, I want to get back with my boys, right? You go through something
Right.
difficult, you want to get back with your crew, you want to have a camaraderie. Life doesn't stop, and you want to get
Right.
back to some kind of normal routine because it's what we're used to. Um, I don't want to interrupt you, but I think you said
Oh,
something there
that's
that
good.
was very important for sure. You want to get
Yeah,
back to work with your guys.
I did. I think you feel like, one, it's a calling, it's a need. I know it's a personal need. And I was really worried that it was going to keep me um, off the job completely. And so I came back and I was afraid because they really didn't go back and look at some of the reports. They just didn't look at them that well. Some of the reports that had come back with respect to memory, cognitive ability, that kind of stuff. And the good part was that with adrenaline, things were fine. So I thought, they're going to come back at some point. So I kept a logbook of every significant run I had. Luckily, Tens was real busy, so I wrote them all down, and they all went well, or whichever ones did go well. And I kept and then about a year later, they came back and said, "Hey, we need to pull you back in." And so they went back, took a look at things, and they wanted to run me through a couple different um, processes. And I'm like, "Hey, wait a minute, look at the book. You can't tell me I can't do the job." So it's pretty interesting, and there was a reason why but I kept that. And I'm really glad I did. So that's the story. So there are other parts of it that are kind of interesting to go along with it, but that's basically it. And then so fast forward, I think probably 5 years before I was retired, maybe 4 to 5 years, things just got harder. They just got more difficult to process stuff, to put things together. And of course, like I said earlier, man, you're just not going to notify anybody. No one's going to know. And even when I went and got some help, a couple of my close friends that were really well respected, they said, "Man, Cruiser, I never would have known." And then my response is, "No, you wouldn't have, because it's just not how we do things, right? We just don't." So, yeah, I had been fighting that quite a bit, and then so in retirement, kind of goes back. This is all kind of tying everything together. Really, is that in the absence of this fire department, who became who I was, not what I did, all of a sudden that's gone, and then it all kind of falls apart. At least it did for me. I mean, I did everything in the beginning, man. I sat in on became parts of different boards. I golfed, I did all that stuff. But I think the work, honestly, in a lot of ways, was holding everything else together, if that makes sense.
Totally, totally.
Because you retire, and especially if they retire you, now all of a sudden you're there, and it doesn't have to be the fire department, by the way. It could be any job where that you identify with, or that the community identifies you with, right? Either one or both. And so, if that's all you have, and now you're retired and you don't have a lot of hobbies, you're basically. I have this idea or this picture in my head that you're sitting in a lawn chair between your ears.
True.
You know,
It's a good analogy. Yes.
you know what I mean? And so all the other stuff just starts to catch up with you, because a lot of us, we literally held things together with a job, and it was a big distraction. If I really was honest,
Mm-hmm.
I kept the job as a distraction in a lot of ways. It kept me from dealing with stuff that I needed to deal with. That's
That,
honest.
and I think a lot of people that are listening, if you guys are resonating with this, you guys are probably like, "Yep, he just said the truth right there." So I think that's how I can't speak for other ones, but I can definitely resonate with you and say that's how it was for me as well.
Right?
And when life takes a different turn, things happen, things unfold. Um, Life has a way of making you deal with your stuff,
It
right?
punches you square in the mouth, Eric, is what it does.
Yep, exactly,
You know? Uh,
exactly, man. And now so as far as you talked about the head injury, and the reason I brought that up is because it's a full circle of, I think, of the retirement, and then getting a new identity and all the help that you're doing, the outreach you're doing with the health and wellness center in Newport Beach. And yeah, there's so many different therapies that you've done that I haven't even done.
yeah,
If you want to talk a little bit about, you said 6 to 7 months or so was it got more difficult, and it kind of got
it did, yeah.
a little deep. and then you started to seek some help. If you can, kind of go into that, how you found the center. Did somebody
Sure.
refer you? Did you just Google stuff? What was your process?
So I started with my first marriage, seen a therapist a couple of times, but that was more directed at marriage and family, therapy, that kind of stuff. And then I thought, okay, well, that's not a bad thing. I think I probably still hit it at the time, to be honest with you. But then after retirement, I just, and even before, but I didn't seek any help. Like I said, things were just getting a little bit sideways. It was just, I couldn't put it all together. And I was just struggling with this stuff. And it wasn't all work, by the way. In fact, it was, yeah, it wasn't work. It was personal stuff. And so, all of a sudden you kind of remove work now and you get a chance to deal with all this great stuff, right? That work, was able to redirect you from. And so I saw a therapist, and then she helped me work through some of these things and kind of get a handle on a couple of them. And she's great, And then I saw another one. He was great, but what I got from him was, man, you remind me of my friends. And I'm like, you remind me of mine. And yet we had a bro down session. I just paid the guy about 150 or $75. So
Yep.
it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I thought, I need to find something else. Then it started to get worse. It really did. And I started to pull back. I got quiet, and I can talk. And so for me to get quiet is pretty interesting. And I just started pulling back. And I think you pull back in your head. I know I'm not the only one. And a lot of us men, we do that. You just start pulling back. And I don't know if it's necessarily or was isolation at the time, but as you start to pull back, you realize that it probably shouldn't. And then you're just shoving everything in. You just don't want it to come out. Because I think part of it is, well, I know this now through all the training and education stuff now that I've jumped into, but that's not abnormal, right? It's not abnormal to do that, to shut it down. And a big part of it is you just don't know what's going on yourself. It's one thing I can shut it off to you, but we're really shutting it off to ourselves because we don't know how to deal with it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really, really uncomfortable. So it isn't necessarily what I was giving out. It's what I think I was afraid of figuring out myself. I just didn't know, right? We just don't know that. So I needed to get some other help that was better. I knew, I can't use names, but one of my best captains ever, his wife, ex-wife actually, go figure, is a therapist. And she, by the way, has helped so many Long Beach guys and their kids. She's just amazing. So really good friends with her, which is great. And so I went and saw her, and she says, hey, you got to go get help at this place. And I'm thinking, hell no, I'll know people. They're in Newport. No way. No, there's no way I'm going to get help there. That's not going to happen. Then there was the Center for Excellence, which I said, hey, I'll go there. All right, I'll get some help there. And then COVID hit. That was shut off. And I even said, hey, look, I'll even drive there. It was pretty interesting, an interesting conversation because like most of us, when I get my mind set on something, I'm like, I'll find a way to make it work, right?
Oh yeah.
And then that got shut down at the last minute or shut off the last minute. So anyway, they were recommending first responder wellness the entire time, but I was like, no way, because I live too close. I will know people. But anyway, went there, and man, that program literally saved my ass. And so the place was great. Uh, they hit you from about 15 different directions, and it's a longer term program. So pretty effective, but without going into that too much. So I got help there. And then going through it, I realized that, and ended up with, when word got out a little bit that in Long Beach, man, I was helping a bunch of guys. You'd be shocked at the number of people, and your phone would, right, it would ring, and you would answer it, and it'd start off with, hey, Cruiser, how's it going? Good. Hey, I heard you got some help. I did.
Yep.
Hey, well, and next thing you know, so I had helped so many people. It was really validating, in terms of, what I had learned, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Humbling, on a really big level. And so I thought, well, shoot, why don't I take it to the next level? So back to school to get my CADAC, which is a certified drug and alcohol counselor, which I just recently finished. My internship was like 3,000 hours work experience and internship. So that's done. Waiting to take the test. And and that feels real good. That's my kind of my service end, of that giving back part. And so, yeah, I like doing that. And so, did we get off sidetrack? Because I think we did a little bit. What was your original question,
No,
Eric? Because I don't
it
want to
was
get off too much.
no, it's talking about you're doing good. This health and wellness center, what you do there, kind of like
So,
how you found it, and uh,
okay,
you were kind of explaining it of
pretty close.
people recommended it and stuff like that, but you didn't want to go there
That's right.
because of embarrassment, which I think is, like the mental health side. I think is just something that you're afraid to look weak, you're afraid to ask for help, right? Um, we always tell
100%.
people, hey man, if you need our help, if you need my help, I'm here for you. But we had a guest on a podcast, Paul from Fresno Fire, and he said that was the hardest thing he ever had to do when he looked himself in the mirror and was like, I had to ask for help. And he goes, it was the hardest
Exactly.
thing, but the best thing. And that's, I think, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
You finally got to the point of asking for help. Somebody told you where to go, but you kind of have the embarrassment now, kind of like, well, I don't, nope, not going to happen. But you made the decision to go there, and that's the place you ended up going to, and that's the place that helped you out, like you said, saved your life. You
Right.
feel like, and now you're giving back, you're getting your certifications, and you're helping with the program. And I knew nothing about that until you actually reached out to me. And Shane and I have talked about it on this podcast, IOH, the program I went to, Institutes of Health in San Diego. We actually, Shane and I did come, you invited us to come down to do a tour of the facility. We talked a little bit about that in our prior
Yeah.
podcast, but Shane went to the Center of Excellence in Maryland. So what different things, levels does uh, the wellness center have? Like what's the intake? What's the process? Who do you think needs to go there? Who do you think it's for? What are different things? What's a path you think of anyone that is listening to this? What do you think a path can be for if they're feeling embarrassed or feeling alone or feeling like I think I need some help, but I don't know where to start? Should I go to the first responder wellness and whatnot? So maybe just give us some insights, or the listeners some insights on maybe a blueprint or a path that can help them out.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. For starters, I would say that like where should they go? Well, one, they should be informed, right? They should be aware of the different. I highly recommend that go see them all. I mean,
Yeah.
really reach out and because one might not be like our program because I never badmouth another program. I just don't. It's not the way I roll. So um, ours is different. For example, um, it's different than the Center for Excellence, right? It just is. It's just how we do things a little bit differently. So, but you would never say anything bad. I I feel like our belief is that we just want to be like one of the tools.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not a good fit, then we'll refer you to someone who is. I've heard people that love Center for Excellence. I mean, let's face it, that's where I was headed, right? I've heard a lot of good things about them. Um, I I have, and I don't think I'm blindly loyal to first responder wellness. I certainly have loyalty, mostly because they're the ones that help me. So as far as who to go to or what the correct pathway is, reach out to a couple of them, right? Figure out who they are, and give them a call. See what they offer. See what everybody's a little bit different in terms of the ability for time. First Responder Wellness is a longer term program with a minimum 45-day stay.
Got it.
And it's that way because the return rate for 30 days or so was way too high. And so it seemed like for us, and I can completely relate to this, is that the first 30 days, you're really just still kicking the tires a little bit. You're still you should have broken down probably the majority of the shame and ego, what I mean? So where you can start to do some work or maybe some of it, because until you do that, you don't really have the ability to get the work done. People come in right away. Hey, I want to see my therapist. I want to do EMDR. I want to do all these different things, right? ART and the truth is that it takes, I don't know, it takes a week or two to kind of calm the brain down. Because if it's still running hot, like for it is for probably most that are coming in, then a lot of those treatment modalities really aren't going to work anyway. They're not going to stick. And so, and by the way, when I said coming in hot, what I mean by that is when you need treatment, and oh, this is good. So when you need treatment, you bypassed a therapist once a week, right? A therapist twice a week. Treatment is not for everybody, and thank God. We don't need, right, everybody to require treatment. We don't, that's not good. So it's not for everybody. So one, if you're not sure, consult a professional, right? Reach out to a therapist. Culturally, if you're a firefighter, police officer, or whatever, some sort of first responder, reach out to someone that is culturally competent. They're not all going to get you. And what I mean by culturally competent are those therapists or psychologists that actually understand what you do.
Mm-hmm.
They understand it, not that, over the last 3 years they've had 4 firefighters come in, but the ones that actually get it, and they are the ones that can actually understand where you're coming from and make a much more better informed decision as to what level of treatment you need.
Yeah.
So one, I would do that. Don't start with treatment.
Yeah, no, you hit a key point Shane and I talk about a lot is the culturally competent individual, right? Because a lot of people may not get us. Just it's the nature
100%.
of the beast, right? So I'm glad you hit
Mm-hmm.
that because that's a big key, and I think sometimes people get turned off because they may. You got to start eventually, right? You're not going to get you may not get the best culturally competent person initially, but
Right.
want to let people know that should be the goal. That's what you're looking for, is to get someone that understands you and understands, like you said, some of the treatment or path you may need to go down to help you. So no, I fully
Yeah.
agree for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I would do that. So make sure they're culturally competent. They get you. Hey, and you know what? If you see one, right, so you think that your correct path for getting some help might still just be a therapist, not just a therapist, but you know what I mean, like, once, twice a week, whatever, a few times a month, then go find them. And if you come in contact with one that you don't feel like is a good fit, keep going. Keep going.
And that's what I
Don't
mean
don't
by
get don't
culturally
give up.
competent. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I
Yeah.
mean by in the beginning, you might have a little trial and error trying to find that.
Oh yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
and that can scare some people, and then they can maybe just give up. But understand that that might be part of your process, part of the process. But if you keep, like yours is a great example. If you just keep looking forward and keep looking for those answers, they'll come. They'll come. The right thing will come in front of you. You just got to keep looking forward if you want the help.
Just like anything else, you got to be tenacious about it, and think about it. It's your own mental health. It's kind of where you are, what's important. And as sooner, and this man, I had as big as ego as anybody, and carry that creates a lot of shame to carry, right? If I have to go get some help, if I have to ask for it, and God forbid anybody should know about it, and then here I am on a podcast, go figure. But as soon as you can admit that you actually need it, and that really comes with looking in the mirror and saying, okay, man, you gotta be solid with yourself first. That's it, right? That's what's first. So, and then once you can get by that and you honestly admit and acknowledge that you need some help, that you can't do it on your own, that's really what it comes down to. It's bypassed. That is bypassed. Maybe even a professional, maybe, every once in a while. And then the treatment end of it is hopefully a referral by them. And maybe if your world completely fell apart, like some of our first responders' lives do, if they completely fall apart, you'll know it may be bypassed, right? Bypassed, therapists, for example. So then you can just enter the admissions process, and they ask you a bunch of questions. They ask you, I think it's about an hour long. They ask you a whole lot of questions, and it could be everything from drug addiction to alcohol to porn, whatever addiction that you have that is keeping you from kind of engaging in your own life. That might be part of, and I'll get into this for a sec, but part of why your life is coming apart at the seams, right? Completely falling apart, relationships, your whole life. The truth is, and I mentioned those, but the truth is it's all rooted in mental health anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You honestly, like a side note, but I think it's good. You can run around and put band-aids on the alcoholism, on the porn addiction, on the drug addiction, on whatever. Amazon addiction. It doesn't really matter. You could put band-aids on them, but if you don't address the underlying root cause, which deals with mental health, you're not going to get anywhere. You're
Yeah.
just not. And it's tough for us to admit that there is any underlying mental health issue because there's still stigma attached to it.
Yeah. Yeah. We preach mindset, mindset, mindset so much.
Yeah.
And I think in a world where it's so easy to, lose sense of self because it is something like, oh, I'm gonna go drink with the boys and forget about the problems or how
Right.
busy, life is. I just need to let the stress out, or I'm gonna go to that strip club, or somehow find whatever vice it is, like you said, porn or Amazon, or hanging out with the wrong people, or uh, whatever it might be, the underlying issue or challenge that you're going to have to come to grips with is yourself. That's the issue, right? It's looking yourself in the
Right.
mirror and saying, why am I doing that? Okay, it's because of this. But life is busy. You go to work, you do things, the world doesn't stop, and then sometimes you get caught up again, and then the cycle starts again, and then you just get caught up. And to slow down, to stop, and do what you said, uh, get the help, and really look yourself in the mirror and search for the underlying cause, the root of the problem to fix. That's where I think the mental health gets a stigma because, you know, I was that guy. How many calls do we run? It's an anxiety attack, right? Like I don't want to
Yeah.
look like that. Just here's a bag. Slow your breathing down. Like it's not that big of a deal, right? Call after call, and you just link. I know I did. I would link mental health to a weak person, right? To okay, I don't know if a weak person, but something where they couldn't control their emotions, or they weren't strong enough, or they. I got humbled a lot in this life, in as far as mental health, and I was not a person that thought twice about it until it happened to me, and the underlying causes was my own mindset, my own vices, my own addictions to not being present, not dealing with the problems, shoving them down, and eventually they'll pop up. And when they pop up, it's a bomb, and that bomb goes off, and you're like, "Wow, there's shrapnel everywhere." And okay, let's take it one wound at a time, and let's just start not putting band-aids anymore, but let's heal this, because the band-aids are going to come right back off. And I think you hit so many things for sure. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
I got to tell you, you said something. I wanted to go back to it, and you said that you said something about being weak, and you said, well, not that I thought they were weak. And hey, man, let's be totally honest. I helped, I think, a lot of people. I was really open. If you were trying, people screwed up, whatever. I was pretty open, I think, to helping people. I helped a lot behind the scenes, it seemed like. Um, However, so those people I felt that went and got some help. But you go back. So Tom, 10, 15 years ago, goes back and I would help Bob, right? He'd go get some help, he'd come back. But then I guarantee him there's a part of me that said he just wasn't made for the job. Not that it
That,
was solvable or fixable. I would help you. I would help you. Bend over backwards to help you, actually. But then there was that question of whether you were just cut out for this job in this department. Maybe this just wasn't, oh, love you, man, but maybe this wasn't cut out for you. And that was ignorance, clearly, right? It wasn't the belief that any of this was either manageable, and I mean it completely solved, but certainly manageable. And now what I find out now working at the treatment center is that not only is it manageable, but these people come back and live their best lives. They're better employees, I guarantee you, than they were 5 years ago, than they were 10 years ago. because you don't end up in treatment. These guys don't end up in treatment centers because all of a sudden they had a one-off. They had one bad day, one bad week, one bad month. So many of these people have lived lives, kind of really under the covers, really for years and years, and lived lives of anxiety and depression, and hid it from everybody. Because if I ask you, and you're like, "Cruiser, I'm good," no, really, Eric, how you doing? I'm good. How about you? We just turn it. We just do. And
Mm-hmm.
so, that's really a thing. And we would have, right? So these people that we treat, they come out and they're better than they have been in years. And yet I would not have thought that out of ignorance and lack of understanding or knowledge. I'll even go back probably 10 years ago. That would have been 5 years back into the job.
Yeah.
That's truth.
Yeah. That's, I'm glad you hit that point because, um, in a roundabout way, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, you're there to help them, but
Mm-hmm.
there's still that thing of like, it's just not for them, because that's
Right.
what we always hear from. That's what we've been taught. Oh, if they can't handle it, they can't handle it. It's like, but maybe there's something else that once they have these few tools, they might come back better. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. That's fine. But that's okay
Right.
too. If you come up to that conclusion with the right mindset and the right tools at the moment to be like, you know what, this just isn't for me. But I would say the majority, they're just suffering alone. They need some of those tools. They need that help. They need someone to listen. And once they have those tools, they're going to be like, maybe not that problem child anymore. That might be that star employee, like, oh, dang, I just needed those couple of tools and you're good. Yep. Somebody listened to me. That's all I needed. Right. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes, what you see, your perception isn't always accurate. In fact, our perceptions are frequently, I think, probably inaccurate. And when I say that, you had mentioned, talk about people kind of pulling back, or maybe we did earlier, but you got to remember that people, or maybe not remember, but learn that isolation is a big deal, but you don't have to actually be alone in terms of not being around any people to isolate. You don't. There are people in your lives right now, if you're working in the fire department or wherever, that there are people that are really having a tough time that you would never know.
Mm-hmm.
There's a phrase I use. It's alone that I learned from someone else, but alone in the middle of a room full of people. And what I mean by that is you can be surrounded by a lot of people, but if you're in a tough spot and you're pulling back and you have very little self worth, a lot of shame, right? You're carrying a lot of shame, have little self worth. You can be around all the people in the world, right? You can bro down with everybody, but that you're all good, that you're really letting anybody truly connect where it's important. And so that's important, I think, to understand as we look after ourselves, but also as we look after our brothers and sisters, to be honest with you, right? It may not be you, but maybe it's someone that's close to you that you run into. So,
That is, I hope anyone that's listening to this made it, anyone that has made it this far on the podcast so far, I think that what you just said right there, there's been so many good things, Tom, but that was me
yeah,
to the T. Uh, there's a podcast that Shane and I just did that will be released. We talked about this exact thing you're saying. You can be in the room with broing down with people. You can have friends and family around you, and you still feel alone. You can still feel like,
right.
but what's going on? Because there's something lacking inside you that you have to fix. There can be love all around you, and you may not even see it because you don't know how to accept it. And that's how it was for me. I didn't know how to accept love. I didn't know how to accept uh, things because I just felt so alone from different traumas and different things, right? Um, but once you get the tools and you become present and you start truly healing yourself, you see what matters, and that
Yeah,
aloneness slowly starts to go away, and you no longer feel alone. You feel abundant, and your perspective in life is way more gracious and way more happy and present than I think if anyone feels like that right now. Because I think in particular men do. because we're afraid to. We don't know how to communicate that stuff. We don't know how
Right.
to open up and really have a man-to-man talk and be like, "Hey, man, I'm just something feels off. I need some help, dude. Like, I'm not asking you to baby me. I'm not asking you to pity me, but it's like I got some hard stuff I'm working on here, and whatever that stuff is, I just need to figure it out." I think sometimes those deeper conversations we don't have because we just I got it right. What like in Long Beach, we're very the culture there is don't be told how to do your job, right? I think a lot of other
Mm-hmm.
departments, our culture in Long Beach is a lot different. Um, where I think a lot of fire departments, firemen, engineers, whatever, uh, are waiting for orders, right? We don't do that in Long Beach. You get off the rig and work. If you get off the you get off the rig and the captain, most departments, right? You go to a fire, you go to a car accident or whatever, a working incident, right? They're typically waiting for orders. Do this, do that, do this. We know that's not how we roll at LB. Maybe that'll happen obviously with the rookie, but the majority of the time, you're getting off and you're working. The captain's trying to keep up with the crew, right?
Well, you should have had if you have a basic extrication and you're going to take off the roof and you're going to open some doors and get some access so the engine guys can get the patients out and do their thing. Well, you shouldn't have to say anything. Let's face it, right? That you got to
Mm-hmm.
train and that shit. A basic bedroom fire. I mean, a single. I mean, you shouldn't have to say a whole lot, right? You just shouldn't. And so I think that's a mentality, and it also ties into a lot of pride, fair
Mm-hmm.
amount of ego, which then makes it even harder in a place. Long Beach is pretty rough. Let's face it; it's not the smoothest place, and it's not the easiest if you don't fit in to manage your way through. It
Yeah.
isn't, but it makes it harder sometimes to even admit that you have pain. And is you have some sort of you need to see a shrink. I hate that term, but it's pretty funny, right? That's the doctor, but a therapist, right? You gotta get some help. So it makes it even more difficult. I was gonna say something too, and that's for the people listening, that if oftentimes in what we see in the treatment arena is people think initially that it might just be work. They might have PTSI, I being injury versus D disorder. So one's treatable, right? So that it, not that they want it to be work, but the understanding initially from them is that it's all going to be work. I got to tell you, once you start peeling everything away and really looking at it, man, sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with the work. Sometimes a little bit, and sometimes it's a lot, but it isn't always that way. And I mention that because if there are people out there that are wondering, hey, this is not, it's not me because it wasn't directly related to work, right? I need some help. I'm really struggling. I'm having a tough time. A lot of anxiety. Been depressed. Seems like, haven't seen anybody, but I think I've been depressed for 4 or 5 months. And yet you don't think it's tied to some big call you went on or any, right? Something like that. That's kind of macho. That's pretty normal. That's pretty normal. And, a big part of this whole thing, Eric, is to understand and accept, right? There are different levels of acceptance. And so but we have to get there, because it'd
Mm-hmm.
be like me looking at my ankle, my foot's pointing the wrong way and saying, hey, I need some ice. Give me a bag of ice. I'm going to be fine. All right. Not like I need the orthopedic guy to reconstruct my ankle. So a lot of times we have a tendency to do that. One of the bigger components, matter of fact, before any help, before you can really truly get any help, is you got to accept the fact that you need it.
Mm-hmm.
And through, I think, shame, some guilt that leads up to that, and this whole stigma thing. Man, a lot of our guys just don't go get it, or if they get it at the treatment end of it, right? Which is when the wheels completely fall off versus, hey, I could have seen a culturally competent therapist, a year ago, 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, right? And got it taken care of then and processed a lot of the stuff that I have to process, whether it was job related or home related. But that really is that's the key right there, is accepting it, and hopefully earlier than later. And, I don't worry about when anybody thinks anymore. I did, but I don't. If people knowing that I went and got some help, whether it's related to my head injury or not, it really doesn't matter. But if they go and get some help, I'm all about it. And kind of the same thing here. If we can drop some of that, some of our ego a little bit, go get some help. The other part of you getting help, I guarantee, is that other people they'll know at some level, and that will open the door for them to go get some help too.
Yeah, those are the notes that I took here. There's the reason I brought up the Long Beach thing was because a big thing for us, and I just think in the fire service as well. I mean, any job, I think if you care, and you want to do well, um, I got this. I'm gonna take care of this. I got
Yeah.
this, right? It's that ego you're talking about. It's the embarrassment, maybe some of the shame, some of the guilt. Maybe you're embarrassed to let your true emotions come out. Being vulnerable or whatnot. To, like you said, accept first of all yourself that you need some help, and then accept the help. Um, and then going to get the help. And that's where I brought the fire department up, as far as saying, um, if we have to get told how to do our job, then we shouldn't be on that crew. We'll go to the other crew. And I feel like if you can't control your life, if you can't take care of your life, then you know what? Then um, I'll figure it out. And I think that's the issue that we run into is I got this. I don't need any help. But to ask for help, to say you may not have this, getting help is the right path to your true happiness. At the end of the day, you don't need to be living a life of unhappiness, a life of just survival, a life of not being present, a life of embarrassment, of the being afraid of the opinions of others. Then you're not living this gift of life that we're given. And I think that's unfortunately how a lot of people might live. And once they find their true self, and you said it, Eric, I don't really care anymore what people think of me. Once you get to that, I think you've arrived, but you've gotten to
Yeah.
your life of like, you know what? This is my life. Hey, man, I'm going to be a good man, good woman, good whatever, husband, father, grandparent, brother, sister, whatever, all the above, right? But you need to make sure you take care of yourself, because the more you take care of yourself, man, the world needs that. The world needs you. The world needs someone that is just the world. We need each person's personality, because that's how we grow. That's how we enjoy life. And just for you, each of us, and the ones listening, um, they're not living your life. You're living your life. And a lot of people have opinions on how they think you need to live it, and that ain't their choice. It's your choice, right? And I'm not saying live a bad life and go do stupid things. When you're trying to do the right thing, and have courage and character, and all the positive qualities, that's what I'm talking about. And when you're trying to do the right thing, it's going to feel very uncomfortable, because you're going to start doing things that a lot of people aren't doing. And when you start working on those things, it's going to feel very awkward. But once you get past that, it's like, how did you feel once the help came? Once you just stopped caring? Was it like, man, this weight just got deeper and deeper? Or is it like, you know what? The weight came off and I'm good. Like, how did you feel?
It took a while to cool my ego. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I struggled with that for some time. So yeah, initially it was tough. It's a work in progress. I mean, it really is. I'm not afraid now just because it's helped so many other people. For whatever reason, people reached out, they heard about it, and it just, man, it blossomed. So, and then, yeah, so it took me a while. I think I still work on it. Obviously I'm good with it if I'm on your show and we're on your podcast and we're talking. But, and then even doing what I do, I spoke, I did a suicide awareness video yesterday.
Okay.
Oh, at First Responder Wellness. Yeah, that was I had Dr. Rodon and myself and a therapist and another SME, and it was just really good. And we talked about the importance of confronting all this stuff. I just lost a buddy, a month ago to suicide. Yeah. Uh, First responder. And so that's number 5 over 40 years now. Right. I started at 19. Am I that? Is that math right? That's too many. And
Yeah.
one of the things we talked about yesterday, which I think is probably valid here, I would think, and that's, man, Eric, we got to confront this stuff.
Yep.
So if I'm worried about you knowing about me or that I went and got some help, really, that's pretty egocentric to say the least, right?
Yeah.
At
Hmm.
the end of the day, I mean, I literally a month ago, and I'm not real happy about that. It hurt. And so, if by us being a little bit vulnerable and exposing ourselves and actually confronting it, then maybe we're all a little bit better off. And when I say confront it, I mean first off, confront it with yourself. I don't mean that you may not even mean that. Just confront it to the extent that, hey, it's a real thing. I talked to a buddy, and if I told you his name, Eric, you go, oh, that guy. So you would understand. Yeah, you would just understand. So I had a conversation with him, and I'm pulling him into this. We're doing this retire well, which you mentioned loss of purpose, identity, which is exactly what that whole thing deals with. And we're actually doing it for Long Beach, which is going to be really cool. Be able to help my old department. It's pretty amazing actually. But he said, I said, hey, maybe you should come. He said, I don't know. But he said, any education or training is always good. And then I really thought of something, and that was, while it may not be you, I almost used his name. While it may not be you, it might be someone you know,
Exactly.
right?
Hmm.
So when we talked yesterday about confronting it, right? First off, it's with yourself and acknowledging. So for this guy, it'd be, hey, just even admitting that, hey, all right, it's a thing, right? I acknowledge that it's there. Then we got to confront it with each other too. And you got to be willing to make some of those hard conversations. I don't want to get into that because I know that's not what this is about. But um, yeah, this whole thing is a real deal. And we've got to be able to admit and acknowledge that it's just there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly what you said is what's happened with Shane, right? Shane and I have talked about this on prior podcasts, and um, what you just said. If it's not you, it might be somebody else. People would support Shane. That wasn't for me. I came to support you, and then it ended up being helping that guy initially that wasn't there for himself, needed
Yep.
to be there more than other people,
Oh, 100%.
right? And so I think that's a good point to hit home is it's not just about us, right? And and
Mm-mm.
yes, we call it the Rick Podcast, Resiliency and Chaos. It's mainly fireman or firefighter based, but it's just anyone in life, right? That needs help, and I think, um, you know, in the fire service, it's we connect with each other in a different way, and it's very hard for us to actually ask for help, I think. And once we do, when we can help, like with the Rick team, right? If you're in there, right, you're on a rig and fire goes haywire, you're gonna want a pretty solid crew to come in and save you, right? You're not gonna want hey man, these guys kind of run some calls. They don't really train much, but hey, they're the Rick team now, right? Okay, hey, who's my Rick team? And you hear the voice on the radio, you're like, oh god, oh, you just bought the voice, right? But if something goes down, you hear a
Yeah.
certain voice, hey, we're coming, hey, we're coming. Where you're at, you give your
Right.
rundown, and it'll bring a sense of calmness of knowing you have a crew that is trained, that is professional, that is going to do their best to come get you, right? And that's the purpose of this podcast, right? It's not to pity anybody. It's not to embarrass anyone. It's not to, you know, uh, talk down or whatever. It's really letting people know, like, hey, we got some culturally competent people. You obviously coming on here, where you're working, your history, the ones coming on the podcast of we hear you, we see you, and you're not alone, right? And uh, if you take some of the steps, if you want whatever those steps are, for yourself, um, you don't have to be just surviving anymore. And once, like, and you said it too, Tom. It's for me as well, right? We're gonna have the imposter syndrome. Oh, what are they thinking? Right? We're human, right? We're not robots. Those things are gonna come and go. But now we know we have to turn that switch off and make a decision to make sure we're good. We're still gonna have those ebbs and flows of life of, oh man, that was kind of embarrassing, or I don't know, what did they think, or because we want our character to be respected, right? Just us as a person, but we shouldn't let it affect us so much to where we're not making progress. And I think is what you were trying to say, right? Of it's a work in progress. Life is a work in progress until we're no longer here. Every day is a day to learn and grow and learn more about ourselves and others. That's how I look
100%.
at it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not done growing. I
Yeah.
mean, we're just not. I retired and went back to school. I mean, I never would have thought I would have done it. But then I never would have thought I would have, jumped on and need some help too, right? Things would have got a little sideways. So you just don't know. But I know my belief for myself is that I just have to stay open to new things and possibilities. I really don't want to be that get off your lawn guy. It's kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's dug straight down into the, early 2000s and doesn't know anything else and get off my goddamn lawn. I don't want to be that guy, right? So
Yeah.
you want to be able to move forward. You want to be able to think new things, learn new things.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's this new thing that FRW found me or I found it, but I got to tell you, I know for me, because that was one of your questions I think you had put down there too, was, how do you look forward? And a lot of this is through some of the new things that I do. And for me, it's your service end of it. Half my buddies think I'm nuts. You went back to school for what? And I
Yeah.
don't think it's kind of ironic too, because at least my perception was I didn't think I was super touchy feely. Real soft when I was there. And so to find me doing what I'm doing now, I think it's a bit ironic. But I also think that at work, you kept people safe because you trained. Right? You're busy
Hmm.
places, you train, and that's what, hopefully allow people to go home, right? And then now I'm essentially doing the same thing. It's just from a different angle.
Yep.
I mean, really. So I don't know that there's any huge shift if I really thought about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Is there, man, there's a few more things I want to ask, but
Sure.
you have done, there's something that you talked about EMDR. You talked about some other treatments. You've done more treatments than I have done because I did the SGB. Shane and I have talked about the stellate ganglion block quite a bit. But there's something you told me that people may not be aware of if they're looking for help, or maybe they've gone to a therapist, or they don't want to go to, uh, IOH or Center of
Mm-hmm.
Excellence or First Responder Wellness. You talked about like horse therapy. What is that?
The horse equine therapy, whatever. Man, it's pretty amazing, and it's interesting to watch people come through treatment and really embrace it right away, or not.
Yeah.
And then for the or not, it's like halfway in, like, oh, now I get it. Um, Horses basically they have these motor neurons, or mirror neurons basically, and they pick up on what you feel. Right? They mirror what you feel. They mirror what you're doing, and so it's really interesting. And so how do we normally deal with stuff, right? We horse it. I mean, no pun intended, but I horse it around, right? I grab it, I pin it to the ground, whatever. I'm going to muscle through it. It's our nature. It really is. I mean, yeah, we're taught some fine tuning things, some finesse deal, but I don't know. I've never been super finesse oriented. And so we do that with these horses. You can't do that. You have to connect at a different level to get the horse to do anything that you want it to do. And
Got
if you
it.
can't connect, and I'm no expert in this is just me shooting from the hip on it, honestly. But if you can't connect with the horse on an emotional level, you will not get the horse to do anything that you don't want it to do. So in an environment, right, when you come in and people their whole lives are, let's face it, their whole lives are falling apart. Some of them are lucky to be there, literally.
Yeah.
So your ability to connect with people is really difficult, and your ability to connect with yourself is even worse, and that precedes the former. So it's interesting. So when these clients or when our first responders, right, our firemen and cops, start working with the horses, initially with some, there's kind of a resistance because you just don't get it. But as it progresses, the whole process progresses, you see, oh, wait a minute. All right, I can connect with this thing and I can be one with it versus trying to force it. Because forcing it you're not gonna force the horse. You're just not. You're not gonna win.
Yeah.
Period. And so that's really at a real basic level, that's what's behind that. And it flat works. We'll see people I'll see people in treatment that absolutely hate it because I'll ask them all the time, how's it going? What do you like? I'm always curious. Do you like that? Don't you like it? All that. And initially, it's not uncommon initially to say no. And then a few weeks into it, I'll go run a group again or go, talk to somebody, and all of a sudden now they like it. They love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's zero sum, but pretty darn close. You're either all in or you're not. And it's a really really good thing. I've seen people's faces light up, right? Their eyes open wide in a way that wasn't there before,
Mm-hmm.
simply because they actually connected
Mm-hmm.
with this beast, with this big animal that, like everything else in their lives, they tried to force, and in this one they actually had to connect. And
Yeah.
that was an interesting too, right? Because as they connect with the horse, who else do they connect with? Themselves.
People themselves. Yeah.
The
Themselves and
other
people. Yeah.
people and themselves.
Yep.
Yeah. People's greatest challenge, it seems like, or one of them, not greatest, but one of them coming into the program is that they can't connect with themselves. They have no idea who
Yeah.
the hell they are anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah, so the equine therapy is pretty amazing. I personally didn't see it. And it takes a while. And I didn't understand it at first either. But I think well, it really didn't take that long. And especially now, you go out and you watch them go through. I'd actually gone out there and done a few groups last year, and I got a chance to see some of these faces light up again. And man, it's magic. It's
Yeah.
magic. I think, honestly, so you mentioned the equine part, but there's so many different. Any good treatment center hits you from 15 different directions. They really do, because, while equine may not be right for you, and not everybody's going to get it, right? Because not everybody's the same. The water immersion therapy might be good for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ART, the accelerated resolution therapy, which is like EMDR and steroids, might be good for you. SGB might be good for you. Not everything's going to be the same for everybody. It just
Mm-hmm.
isn't. So to have all these different treatment modalities available is what's important. It really is. It just gives you the opportunity to expose yourself to so many different things.
Yeah. I want to go try the horse stuff. Like
You should.
I feel great, but as you explained it, um, it, you lose connection with life yourself, right? And so in life, we lose connection, and we can try to force everything, even if it's not meant to happen. We can still try to make things happen that aren't meant to happen, right?
Yeah.
But like you said with the horse, it ain't gonna do it unless it has a connection. So you are now forced, not even forced, you are, if like you said, if you accept it and you said something, you're either in or you're out. That's key. You're either in or out. You're gonna do the work or you're not. If you're gonna do the
Right.
work and you're gonna accept and you're gonna be fully in, right, then you're gonna see the results, because you're accepting the treatment, you're accepting the help, you're accepting new ideas, creativity, whatever that might be. And that's vulnerability. So when you're vulnerable with yourself, you let your wall down, you go in and you try SGB or EMDR, or the equine therapy, whatever it might be. Right? We're all different, so these are all different tools. But as you were explaining with the horses, I'm like, wow, that makes complete sense, because now you're like rewiring like some of those like your neurotransmitters, because you're trying to rewire that brain to then connect in different ways. Now that connection creates like a visceral emotional connection. Like you said, their eyes are lightened up.
Mm-hmm.
They are alive. They feel a connection. They probably look happier because they're feeling something they haven't felt for a very long time because they connected, where
Right.
they haven't connected for years. They were dead inside probably. Now they connected, and it's like, oh, they have a life again. They're alive, and that is how everybody should feel. And so many, I think, don't feel like that for a very long time, and they need to get that back for sure.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the best parts. In fact, maybe it's the reason why I do it. One of the best parts of my job, my part-time work I do, although it doesn't feel like part-time most of the time, is that I run these groups and I see people in this one arena once a week, and to see their faces at 1 week intervals and to watch their progression is absolutely amazing. So humbling, and to be a small part of what helps these men and women get better, heal, is really why I do it. And yeah, to see, because you hit it, their eyes light up, right? Open. I mean, I got to tell you, it's really amazing, and it is progressive. It doesn't happen overnight. And so, even anybody out there, right? You're kind of you're down in the dumps, or you've been depressed for a while, or whatever you got going on. It doesn't it doesn't happen overnight. It's progress, not perfection, we like to say. And so, don't beat yourself up over it. It's not going to happen overnight. It didn't get there overnight, so it's certainly not going to be unwound overnight.
Mm-hmm.
But that, try to get yourself in a position where you're making some progress, and maybe that'll make you feel a little bit better too. I know that helps with most of these people that we work with.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's man, I think it's been some great information for sure, Tom. I think it's been awesome. There's a couple more things that I want to ask you.
Sure.
Um, we've talked about everything from personal life to challenges and struggles and uh, treatments and the job, on the job, off the job, different kinds of things. But is there anything that you like to live in particular, as far as like a mantra or a quote or something you kind of tell yourself? There may be a challenging time or a hard time or something you like to live by that you'll tell yourself.
Hmm. What do I tell myself? All right. Well, there are two of them that I go by. One would be relationships matter.
Mm-hmm.
They just flat matter, right? It's not your deferred comp. It's not what CalPERS drops in your bank. It's
It's not, yeah,
it's
true.
right. It's flat. It is. Relationships matter. They just do.
Yeah,
And I say that, but I truly believe in it. The other part is that surround yourself with good people.
yeah,
I do. Things are good. I credit a lot of the people, including my wife and my kids, that I surround myself with for that. I do. I think I don't hang around, I don't hang out around anybody that I don't respect. I
yeah,
don't. It's not worth my time. I'm pretty good being by myself if I want to be,
yeah,
right? And yeah, I don't hang out with anybody that I don't respect. It's just not worth it. So
yeah,
yeah, those two things I think are tied. But yeah,
yeah. No,
that's
I
what I
think
try
it's
to live by.
great. It's look at I left Long Beach and you got a retirement. You no longer work. I'm off the job now, but we still keep in contact. Why? Because it's relationships, right?
Mhm.
We've connected in different ways. I never thought we would connect, uh, or a level we would connect on. Never did I think I wouldn't be at Long Beach, right? Never did I think I would have got an early retirement. And you're my
Mhm.
battalion chief, and we're having conversations now, years later of something I knew nothing about, something you knew nothing about, really. We just, hey, we're there for our buddies, but that's pretty much it. And now you're having two dudes just come on here trying to help our own and help anybody that's suffering, or even if you're not suffering, or hurting, it's somebody in your family or somebody you see
Right.
on the job, and you're trying to maybe just grab some information to help them out, right? And so I think relationships are massive for sure. I think life is built on relationships. The relationship starts with yourself, and that just goes out to everything else. And I think we've hit that pretty hard for sure. And um, so as far as getting in contact with you, do you have a Instagram, a LinkedIn, a website? Is there anything at first responder wellness? Is there any way people can contact you or connect with you if they want to reach out to you after this podcast?
Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll give my FR Health, my First Responder Wellness email. I think that'll be good because I
Perfect.
really don't do social media. I have a LinkedIn account, but I don't really use that. Sorry, I'm over 60. I'm, I'm 61. That's foreign.
uh,
I really don't. I don't use any of that stuff. I used to, but then I found myself too much into it. So you want me to give it?
yeah. Go for it. Where
Yeah,
where can we reach you at? What's that email?
sure. It's Tom Crewse CREWSE at frhealth.com.
Awesome. You can reach me, guys, at epagetcoaching at gmail.com. And you can reach Shane over at ricfirecaptain.com. So, Tom, thank you a ton for coming on here, man. It means a lot. I know this is definitely different for a lot of us, being open and having these conversations. But if it can help just one person, that was our goal with this podcast. And I think Shane and I have been blown away of the support, just like what you were talking about, as far as guys reaching out to you, and that's why you do it, because it's for the other people, and that's what this podcast is about. So, if we can just help one person, pay it forward, right? Have somebody listen to this podcast. If it can help just one person, maybe it's one more suicide we could prevent, one more marriage we could save. Uh, whatever it might be, just something to help the next person. So, yeah, thank you, Tom, so much for doing this, and maybe there'll be a follow up with you, Shane, and I. Maybe we'll have more, but if not, I thank you for your time, man.
You're welcome, man. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we'll see you guys on the
Take
next one.
care.
Thank you.
You're
You too.
welcome. Say hi to Shane.
I will.